Hi, good to see you. You guessed it, we're talking about Candida right now. Okay, here's the thing with Candida. You may only think of yourself as having vaginal Candida, and that's great. I appreciate how you're thinking, but that's not really what's going on. So the reason why a person develops vaginal Candida to begin with is that they're having trouble with their digestion. So the vaginal Candida is just a symptom of this greater digestive imbalance, a digestive imbalance in which there's too much unfriendly bacteria and not enough friendly bacteria. Okay, they call that dysbiosis. Yeah. So you're going to start to get familiar with these terms as we go through them and use them repeatedly. So dysbiosis, you can check that out on the internet. Check it out on Google. Dysbiosis. Dysbiosis. I guess I could write it on a little thing for you. Let me write that out here. Hopefully you can read my writing. I am a doctor, Dysbiosis. Let's hope I'm spelling it properly. Okay, so check it out, dysbiosis. So again, if you're a female and you're having a candida infection, that's a vaginal candida infection. It may seem like it's only in the vagina, but no, it's actually throughout your entire digestive tract. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about this book from Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. Okay, and as you can see in the book, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride is going over things like symptoms like asthma, eczema, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, allergies, autism, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, schizophrenia. Okay, I hope you're able to hear me while I'm talking through the book. I could say it again if you want. Asthma, schizophrenia, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, ADD, ADHD, bipolar syndrome, dyspraxia, dyslexia, allergies, autism. You get the idea? So Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I said that 3 times. So these are all diseases that are a result of a disruption of the digestive tract. Basically, they're a result of a weakened immune system, and the weakened immune system is due to poor digestion. Okay, there's an infection in the digestive tract. It's that simple. There is an infection in the digestive tract. It is that simple. So you may be wondering, if you're watching this and you're really kind of astute and you're thinking this through, you may be thinking to yourself, so does Dr. Ilya Skolnikov, diplomate of the International Board of Applied Kinesiology, an applied kinesiologist being somebody who's a diagnostic specialist and who also has therapies to help people. They understand the different interrelationships in the body and how organs and glands are related to different emotions, and organs and glands are related to different muscles, and organs and glands and muscles and emotions are related to different nutrients and different homeopathic remedies and different kinds of herbs and different colors. There's 7 main colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And notes of a scale, there's about 7 main ones: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? So does Dr. Ilya Skolnikov support and promote the GAPS diet, the gut and psychology syndrome diet? As a matter of fact, I don't. Okay, I'm not trying to put down Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, the medical doctor, who's not an applied kinesiologist. I'm just going to have a little bit of water here in a minute. I'm not trying to put her down. I just don't subscribe to a lot of the things she goes over. So she suggests it's okay to have a little fruit here and there while you have one of these infections. And I don't think that's such a good idea, because sugars and fruits, especially sugars from fruit, they feed fungus. Okay, so they'll feed the fungal infection. So you don't want to do that. Okay, not a good idea. But she goes over some really amazing stuff in here. Now, let's look at a few of the facts. I think we've gone through this before. But the reason why so many of these emotional type diseases come from the gut is because there are more nerve connections in the gut, okay? More nerve connections in the gut than there are in the brain. And there's more cells in the gut, believe it or not. There are more cells in the gut than there are in the entire body. I'm not talking about cells that are in the organs and glands. I mean, there are more bacterial cells in the gut than there are in the entire body combined. That is astonishing. That is amazing. That is just mind-boggling, mind-blowing information, okay? That blows my mind. So no wonder if you're having dysbiosis, meaning an imbalance of bad bacteria to good bacteria, too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, no wonder people have so many difficulties. And she even says this here. She has this on page 7 of her book. Here, she says, the father of modern psychiatry, French psychiatrist Philippe Pinel, who lived from 1745 to 1828, after working with mental patients for many years, concluded in 1807, the primary seat of insanity generally is in the region of the stomach and intestines. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And what an interesting fact, huh? I mean, isn't that interesting? So she just goes on and on and on about all kinds of interesting stuff. She talks about the gut-brain connection on page 49. So let's check that out. Page 49. So I was just talking about that, right? There are more nerve cells in the gut than there are in the entire brain. She talks about how because these candida infections, the candida itself has over 70 different toxins that it releases into the blood, many of the byproducts and chemicals that are toxic that are put into the blood are almost identical to alcohol. So some people who have these candida infections they just feel dizzy all the time. Sometimes they feel a little bit nauseous. I'm not saying you do at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying some people do. And they have trouble thinking clearly. And it's as though it's almost as though they're drunk all the time. And so she's going over all this in her book in quite a bit of detail, actually. So because the candida is alkaline, the stomach has less of an ability to produce stomach acid. I mean, this is like wild, you know. People with candida infections sometimes have symptoms of like what an alcoholic would be, not able to remember things, cloudy thinking, foggy thinking, scatterbrained, can't remember why they walked into a room or where they put their keys or whatever. And again, I'm not saying you have these symptoms, but many people do, okay? It's just fascinating, okay? Fascinating stuff. So, so check that out if you are able to. I mean, I'm not saying you have to get the book, but you could. She's saying that the exorphins are released from certain kinds of things that people get addicted to. In other words, there's actually opium in wheat. So wheat's not so good, right? The opium in wheat is called gluteomorphins. It comes from gluten. And there's also opium in dairy, okay, in the cheese, for example. And that opium chemical in the cheese is called caseomorphins. So these exorphins give you a high, a rush, like you get from endorphins, like when you're exercising a lot. But that rush that you get is an unhealthy rush. It's not like the healthy rush from exercise or sex. It's an unhealthy rush that you get from foods that you're having an allergic response to, that are stimulating your brain in the same way that opium does, heroin. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, this is like, oh my God, this is like huge stuff, right? Okay. So let's kind of move on here. Let's not get stuck. We don't want to get stuck on stuff. Okay. Next thing, we're going to talk about what can damage gut flora. So antibiotics can damage gut flora, can't they? Yes, they can. Antibiotics kill the friendly bacteria in the gut. What page are we on? Page 33. Okay. So, and that's not so good. She talks about that on page 33. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so see how she's talking about the antibiotics there on page 33? Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to do this kind of stuff with I'm using an iPhone right now, okay? An iPhone 10. Okay, so antibiotics have a devastating effect on beneficial bacteria in the human body, not only in the gut, but in other organs and tissues. Antibiotics change bacteria, viruses, and fungi from benign to pathogenic, giving them an ability to invade tissues and cause disease. That's not so good. Antibiotics make bacteria resistant to antibiotics. So once you have the antibiotic will create bacteria that's then resistant to the antibiotic. Is that crazy or what? So why would you ever want to take an antibiotic? Believe me, and please believe me, okay? There is not a really great reason to take antibiotics, but I can give you some not great reasons, and I just did. You're killing off your immune system. You're causing destruction to the healthy bacteria in your gut. You could improve the health of your immune system and improve the healthy bacteria in your gut with things like caprolates that are extracts coming from coconut oil. The most basic among them, and the most well-researched, as far as I know at least, is monolaurin, which is just the basic extract of the coconut. Okay, it's quite acidic. You can bat candida with that. You can also use magnesium caprolate, phosphorus caprolate, zinc caprolate, and calcium caprolate. Okay, you could do that if you want. There's other things you can do. You can use astragalus. You can use, that helps with the immune system function. You can use echinacea, you can use golden seal, you can use barberry root, you can use Oregon grape root, you can use things like, well, anyway, do you get the idea? There's a lot of different things you can use. You can use a vitamin D, you can use a vitamin A and vitamin C and vitamin E compound. Yeah, I mean, you can just go hog wild with this stuff. I wouldn't suggest you start to experiment on your own, but I'm just saying, there's natural solutions to a lot of these chronic or immune weakening imbalances. But having a immune system weakening, medication like an antibiotic may not necessarily be the best way to go. Yeah, St. John's wort gets rid of viral infections. Turmeric is also helps. Uva ursi has been shown to help with all kinds of bacteria. A person could use Oregon grape root. That could be used for bacteria, and it can also be used for fungus and mold and yeast and candida. And there's just all kinds of things that people can do that are not really so disruptive to the immune system function as antibiotic would be. Andrographis complex is great, or Andrographis. Andrographis is antibacterial also, okay? So that's kind of like, I guess that's an Indian herb. Google is another Indian herb that can help with the heart, and it can help with inflammation and pain, and it can also help with immune system function. So that's not a bad idea. Are you starting to get the idea here? Even cranberry extract will help with kidney and urinary tract infections, bladder infections. You could also use buchu root. I think you're getting the idea, right? I mean, I don't want to keep going over this over and over again and cause you guys to go nuts watching this, hearing the same thing over and over again. But you get the idea. These antibiotics aren't so great. And she's saying that antibiotics make bacteria resistant to antibiotics, right? So the industry has to work on more and more powerful new antibiotics to attack these new changed bacteria. A good example is tuberculosis, where wide use of antibiotics has created new varieties of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis resistant to all existing antibiotics. Antibiotics have a direct damaging effect on the immune system, making us more vulnerable to infections, which leads to a vicious cycle of more antibiotics and more infections. Okay. So she's talking about the penicillins and what they do. I'm not saying there's not a use for antibiotics at certain times. I know it sounds like I'm saying that you could never use one. I'm not saying that, but it should really only be used in an emergency. I mean, it's kind of nasty stuff, so you don't want to play around with it too much. Tetracyclines, she's talking about them being bad. That's how I developed really severe liver toxicity, was from the use of Retin A. Okay, I used Retin A. I used tetracycline. I used benzoyl peroxide. I used Cleocin T. And I used Accutane. Okay, so I was getting myself into some trouble. Aminoglycosides, she talks about that. She goes on and on and on. Antifungal antibiotics like nystatin and amphotericin. This is written by a medical doctor, you know. It's not like she's just some, somebody who hasn't been to medical school or something. She's not somebody like me. Okay, all right. Hopefully you're getting some value out of this. Okay. All right. Also, the birth control pill is really something that's messed up a lot of women. I've seen patients in my practice after using the birth control pill for 8 or 10 years or less with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. They're not doing too great. Okay. And they're having a lot of trouble with their weight a lot of the time. They can't lose weight. Of course, we help them in the office, but that's not the point. Okay, the gut-brain connection. According to Goethe, one only sees what one looks for. One only looks for what one knows. So I'm trying to help you to look at things differently and know a lot more. I don't know if you could read it that fast, but that's what it says. And there's just some cool stuff in here. Okay. The other thing, opportunistic flora. Again, we're talking about an opportunistic type of infection. That's what Candida is. Opportunistic means it only affects a person with a weakened immune system. Okay, this video has been going for quite a while. It's been about 18 minutes. So she describes the opportunistic type infections. She describes how Candida thrives on a sugary kind of environment, on sugar. And because there's a leaky gut syndrome, meaning there's little holes in the intestines, mainly in the small intestine, could be in other parts of the intestines, but whole food particles can go through that little tiny hole in the intestinal wall. And then because it hasn't been broken down properly, the food particle then becomes an allergen or like a foreign invader. So your body starts to go to fight it off, thinking that some kind of bacteria or virus or parasite or amoeba or, something like that came into the body. But that's not really what's happened. It's just the food particle got through. So now you become allergic to that food. The body starts to fight off that food anytime you eat the food. Okay, so I hope you're not feeling overwhelmed. Just know that we're going to walk you through this. Give me 3 months. Give me 3 months of your time. Do this diet really strictly, to the T, exactly for 3 months. Spend the $20. Get the whole Candida-free program for $19, right? If you haven't had an opportunity to get it for $19, it's too late. You won't be able to get it for $19 anymore. I was losing money on that, okay? So it's going to be $147. So just pay the $147, get the program, use the supplements as it describes, give me 3 months, and you won't have Candida anymore. You won't have mold, yeast, or fungus. You'll get through this. You can also do a lab. It goes over the labs in the program and everything. So again, you're going to love this whole thing. A lot of these diseases like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it's due to a mold, yeast, fungus, or Candida infection. Yeah, seriously. Asthma, mold, yeast, fungus, and Candida infection. Rheumatoid arthritis, mold, yeast, fungus, and Candida infection. Diabetes, mold, yeast, fungus, and Candida infection. Okay? Graves' disease, mold use, fungus, and candida infection. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So you got to get yourself educated a little bit at least. You know, try to not fall asleep during these videos. I try to make it exciting for you, but sometimes I admit that even I can be a little bit dry, and sometimes it's not as exciting as I want it to be. But, you know, get into it. She's talking about some really interesting stuff, and the gut-brain connection. Oh, my goodness. So you can go to page 49 and check that out. That is pretty cool, too. So, you know, that's only if you bought the book. If you don't want to buy the book, don't get it. But it's a good book, okay? So thanks for watching, and next time we see each other, we'll continue some more. But this was a long video, and you've done well, man. You held in there till the bitter end. If you happen to be seeing this on Facebook, like our Facebook page, Triad Health Family Healing Center. Give us a love, okay? If you can, give us a love, or give us a thumbs up, or give us a happy face, or you could give us a surprise face, or, you know, do whatever you need to do. Okay. Also, check out our YouTube channel, Triad of Health Family Healing Center. We have over 250 videos on our YouTube channel, so please like us on YouTube. Or, you know, our handle on Instagram is Triad of Health, and on Twitter we're called One Stop Doc. So maybe you could check us out on Twitter, might as well. Oh, by the way, on page 67, she goes over some really interesting stuff. And please, you know, it's not just me. There's a lot of people talking about similar things, and the reason why we're all talking about this is really important stuff. We want you to know about it, okay? In fact, speaking of knowing about things, here on page 67, okay, what does she say there? She said, the mind is like a parachute. It only works when it is open, okay? So that's interesting. She's talking about autism. She's talking about measles, mumps, and rubella. She's talking about vaccinations. Now, apparently, I guess you'll just have to read through it, I guess, but she's talking about the adjuvants and vaccinations, maybe cause it, you know, they're all toxic. It's a fact. Every vaccination has an adjuvant. Some of the times the adjuvant is a virus itself, a living virus. Other times it's a dead virus, okay? Sometimes they use sheep's blood. Sometimes they use a type of a motor oil. Not always do they use motor oil, but sometimes they do. It's the same thing that's in your radiator that keeps the water in your radiator from freezing when it gets really cold. Propylene glycol is the name of this particular substance that I'm referring to. So they have you inject that stuff into your blood, and then you're going to have an immune response, and hopefully you fight off the virus that's in the vaccination. But I don't know if it's so good to inject like a toxic chemical in your blood directly. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, the medical doctor who went to medical school for I don't know how many years to learn about this stuff. I'm just little old me, Dr. Ilya Skolnikov, a diplomat of the International Board of Applied Kinesiology. So anyway, good stuff, good stuff. Please check it out. I think you'll find it really helpful if you're able to pick up the book. If not, we're going to talk about this stuff some more later anyway. So we'll talk to you soon, and thank you. This is Dr. Ilya Skolnikov.